This is not a new issue. This is something that I've been saying from a senator. So it's not new. They are gaslighting us. It is smoke and mirrors. If you look at the two speeches, Marco Rubio's speech and Andrew Holness's speech, and anytime a journalist takes some time to sit down and look at the two speeches, they'll recognize that this was not a successful meeting. And if it was successful, the extent to which it was is what Jamaica would have done for it to be successful. So the questions needed to have been asked. And if not asked of Marco Rubio and Andrew Holness in that press conference, then asked at a later date, a follow-up, a press briefing, something. Call the Prime Minister, call the Prime Minister's office and ask about it. Let me take a break. Reporting, how you know how this thing played out and how it is playing out, you have to do a triangulation. So you have to go to the website of the U.S. Secretary of State. You have to look at all the press releases that they have put out. You have to look at how they are contextualizing and the narrative that they're spinning around what they're saying about Marco Rubio's visit to Latin America, to the Dominican Republic, to Jamaica, to Guyana. Then you have to go to Guyana and you have to look at what Guyana is putting out about, you know, Marco Rubio's visit. Why was he coming? What plans were in place? For example, Guyana was reporting, while Marco Rubio was in Jamaica, Guyana was reporting that Rubio was in the region to deal specifically with issues relating to China. And one of the issues that that Guyana reported on extensively had to do with fees on ships. So it had to do with shipping routes. It had to do with Chinese shipping vessels in Caribbean waters and Latin American waters. And the fees that America, the Trump administration, would be putting onto these shipping vessels and how those costs would translate into higher cost of living for Caribbean people and Latin American people. This is what was being reported in Guyana while Marco Rubio was in Jamaica. Do you understand what I'm saying now? And Guyana went as far as to say, Ali Afran, who is the Prime Minister of Guyana, he went as far on the record to say that he had a meeting with the members of CARICOM. They were on a call with the members of CARICOM, and that this was top of the agenda for them, for Marco Rubio coming into Jamaica, coming into the Caribbean. Whereas Jamaica's reporting did not mention China at all. Or if it did, it was piecemeal. They were all about the Cuban doctors. But CARICOM, Ali Afran was saying in Guyana that CARICOM, and you know, let me find a story. Hold on, let me find a story. Is that Ali Afran had said, okay, Caribbean countries to express concern. There you go. All right. So while Marco Rubio was in Jamaica, Guyana was reporting Caribbean community CARICOM leaders plan to tell U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio that the U.S. proposed fines, F-I-N-E-S, on Chinese-made cargo vessels would hurt the region's oil and gas industry, as well as push up transportation costs. This was also reported in Bloomberg. So if you are reading Bloomberg media, you'll also see this. And Bloomberg actually quoted Ifran Ali. The complaint from Caribbean countries is that the latest sign that the U.S. proposed additional fees on Chinese-made ships is unpopular among almost all parties involved and will eventually backfire. Chinese experts also got in on that, and Bloomberg was quoting from Chinese expert. Ali Afran said that CARICOM leaders discussed the issue in a virtual meeting, and that virtual meeting was held specifically to plan how CARICOM would engage with Marco Rubio. This was also reported in Bloomberg. And Ali Afran said that the U.S. proposed tax on Chinese-made crude and gas vessels, as well as other cargo ships, would adversely affect the oil and gas industries of the Caribbean. That, of course, will have an effect on the cost of goods coming into the region, also transport coming into the region. This is Ali Afran. He says fines on Chinese-made and Chinese-linked vessels would also increase the cost of imports to the Caribbean, etc., etc., etc. So that's one thing. The other thing had to do with Panama. And so when Marco Rubio was in the Dominican Republic, because this is a country he went to first, you have to read the speeches from Marco Rubio and from the Dominican Republic. Two things. One of the main thing for the Dominican Republic when Marco Rubio was in the Dominican Republic was to treat Haiti and the Haiti problem as an international problem that is not a Dominican Republic problem, and to allow or to re-engage Kenya and the Caribbean and CARICOM and all of that. So this was a main issue on the agenda for the Dominican Republic when Marco Rubio went there. And so the president, the prime minister of the Dominican Republic, he spent a very long time in his speech talking about that. Marco Rubio, when he took the stage, agreed with him. So when Marco Rubio came into Jamaica, Haiti was on the table. But notice how the two men dealt with it differently. Marco Rubio was saying, parroting exactly what the Dominican Republic prime minister told him. But Andrew Holness was talking about humanitarian issues regarding Haiti, while Marco Rubio was looking at a whole different set of things, all those things, using the very same words that he used in the press conference in the Dominican Republic. This is how journalism works, and this is why I want to have a conversation with my colleagues in the media. There's another thing is that if you look at the speech given by Marco Rubio and the speech given by Andrew Holness, you'll notice that these two men are not saying the very same thing. You have to go back and read the speech, put them side by side, and take them apart. They are not saying the same thing. As a matter of fact, Andrew Holness talked about the security issues that they discussed, and he gave it a name. He talked about gang warfare. Marco Rubio took the stage, and he said, we are not going to call it gang warfare. We're going to have to find another name for it. Do you know why Marco Rubio has to find another name for it? He has to find another name for it because it has nothing to do with gangs. It's bigger than gangs. It has to do with China in the Caribbean waters. There's also something that they said in the speech. They're bringing back the Caribbean Basin security. Goodness, I don't even, I need some, I don't know why I keep doing this. I need to make notes when I'm coming into these spaces. All right, let me look and see. Oh, goodness, and we are even running out of time. This is a headline that's coming out today, and it's coming from China. China is making some very serious statements. So you go to CGTN or you go to any of the South China Seas newspapers or reports coming from not the West. And you see that China, we reported in this space a while back that the company, the private company that owns the ports, that owns the ports along the Panama Canal, that they are selling to BlackRock, and that BlackRock has now gone over to the technocracy side of Donald Trump, and so this consortium that's selling to BlackRock is it's good for the U.S. This Donald Trump welcomed that and so on, because BlackRock is part of the whole double EF, globalist, technocracy, transhumanism, that whole space. Look up BlackRock. BlackRock is critical to any of this coming through. In the Economic Times, which I think you can get to easily, which says, let me tell you what it says. It says U.S., China raises stakes in Panama Canal ports row. China is reacting strongly to Hong Kong conglomerate CK Hutchinson's sale of Panama Canal ports to a U.S.-led consortium for $19 billion, heightening geopolitical tensions. Chinese regulators are, Chinese regulators are reviewing the deal amid concerns it could disrupt trade, showcasing the strategic the strategic importance of global port hubs. And so the story continues. China's fury at the sale of Panama Canal ports to a U.S.-led consortium reflects how container hubs have become prized currency as Beijing and Washington vie for global influence. Now, this is true, and this is the issue that we're faced with here also in Jamaica. So if you go back and look at Marco Rubio's speech, and I hope that towards the end of the program this morning, I'll get a chance to go through both speeches, Andrew Holness's speech, Marco Rubio's speech, and then to show you how they compare and contrast, but also to say the tone and the diplomacy, very different, right? The words that them use, what was explicit and what was implicit, that's a whole other thing. Jamaica's position on security, how it differs in tone from what we heard from Andrew Holness, and so that this celebration on the island here in Jamaica is premature. It's premature. Marco Rubio himself told us that him come early. It's premature. The celebration is premature. We will find out. Do you remember that when Portia Simpson Miller went to China, I invited her for an interview to tell us what she signed. And she agreed to come for the interview. And Saturday night before the event, I got a call from one of her people to say that she would not make it. I called everybody that I knew around Portia to say, you know, we're doing the promos, why won't she come on? And it was for me, it was stressful. I had to come the next day to apologize to Jamaica to say she wouldn't come on. What I was asking Portia, what did you sign? So I couldn't get what Portia signed, but so I went to China. And I'm gonna ask. I know we have our next guest. It's 7:58, and she's due. Our next guest is due at 8 o'clock. So I want to apologize to you, Dr. Esther Figueroa, because you came in much too early, and but it's not your fault. It's totally not your fault. But just hold for me, please, my sister. So let me just finish the sentence, which is to say that so Portia said no, and so I came and I apologized. But then I went to the China news, and we found that over time, that a big part of what was being signed away was the Roaring River property. That is over 10 years ago. And we started activism in this space to save the Roaring River, the watershed area, the Rio Bueno watershed area, all the rivers in the area, the Roaring River. We march up and down the Roaring River. We used bullhorn in the town square of Ocho Rios. We started a petition, and we did every single Sunday a program in this space. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Anywhere I was as a broadcaster, and I was asking my colleagues to come on board, I didn't get any support from my colleagues. And even when they pretended that they were supporting, it was to sabotage the process. This was my experience. Now I want to say to my colleagues, hold your horses on how you're reporting on Marco Rubio and Prime Minister Andrew Holness's meeting. It was not a success. We are going to find out later what they discussed, what was in what agreements they came to, and how those will feed back on us. And until we know, then there's no celebration here. It was never about the Cuban doctors. That was smoke and mirrors. That was three-card game. That was a sleight of hand. Let me take a break, and I come back to my sister, Dr.